Hi, it's Lizbeth, and I just wanted to let you know that I heard your request for information about breaking into writing, and I wanted to make a video because I get this request probably every month. Some person has a friend, a family member, or I just get someone writing to me who's read the first or, the first book that I wrote, or maybe saw the TV movie. How do you break into writing? And first, let me just say, I'm Lizbeth Meredith. You can sign up for my email at lameredith.com. And just know this is one writer's opinion, just an opinion about my own writing journey. And if I could go backwards in time, what are some mistakes I would avoid? Few mistakes I would avoid, and a few things I did right that I would definitely encourage you to do. So moving backward for just a moment, now I'm the author of 4 books, but when it came to writing my first book, it was clearly going to be my memoir, a work of nonfiction. One of the mistakes I made was telling people in my circle and my support network, oh, I'm going to write a book about my experiences. And yeah, my experiences were dramatic. My kids were taken out of the country by their non-custodial father. There was intergenerational domestic violence, those kinds of things. So I told a few people in my close circle, hey, I'm going to be writing a book. I'm really going to do this thing. And that may sound all well and good, but I didn't know back then for many years, I didn't know what the full story would be. So I just said some half-baked idea about, hey, I'm writing my life story and there will be this factor and that. And then I had a friend reach out to an author that she knew who had published a memoir that became a book or that became a movie. And this author reached out to me at my friend's request. I don't think I made that request, but maybe. But this author that I did not know reached out to me and said, hey, I heard you're thinking about writing a book. You shouldn't bother. Maybe at most it would be a magazine article. It takes a lot to engage people and being interested in a story. And yours doesn't sound like it has that much to it. So, my advice would be don't write it. This was not the first time that I had people tell me don't bother to write it. And here's the thing. I could have stopped right then and gotten really sad and all the things, and it did hurt my feelings. But the fact of the matter is, why was I telling people this who didn't need to know when I wasn't even fully sure yet what my whole story was about? So I couldn't fault this writer who was taking secondhand information when even if she'd gotten it firsthand from me, it wasn't complete yet. I wasn't sure what the log line or the tagline of my story would be. I didn't know what the back book cover would say one day. I was just beginning my journey. So I think what she said made sense based on what she heard. But that could have derailed me. If I was less persistent, that could have definitely derailed me. So please don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. A lot of writers will get stymied into thoughts of, oh my gosh, what if my family doesn't like this book? What if I get sued? What if I get a fact wrong? What if? The more you start just kind of sitting in those racing thoughts, which are normal, totally normal, but it keeps one from writing. And at the beginning, that is completely unnecessary. These are all smart things to maybe put a pin in those thoughts for now, like just stop. But it doesn't mean that later on you're not going to want to get information on legal advice, on changing names, or do people really need to be in your book? Maybe they don't need to be in there. So it's just too early to start soliciting a crowd of opinions. A whole bunch of opinions not going to help you. Second thing that I wish I hadn't done, but that's okay. We learn, is I started sending out query letters. Also, this was more what happened back in the day when I was an early writer. This was ages ago. We're talking In the 90s, if a person had a great idea for writing a book, hopefully they wrote a fabulous book proposal. No, I'm not going to teach what that is at this moment. Google, put in your search engine what a book proposal is. A person based on a fantastic book proposal that they submitted to a literary agent could get paid to write that book. Those were the days. Those were the days. Those days are gone now. Long, long, long gone. So if I could go back in time, I wish that I would not have bothered with any of that. I wish that I would have not written a query letter on a book that had not been fully thought out, mapped out, and written, because that wasted a whole bunch of time, me waiting for people to green light something that I knew was important to me. So wish I hadn't have done that. I spent a lot of time getting to know the land of the publishing world. And of course, since I started writing my first memoir in 1997, I'm going to say is when I put my first words together. I'd written the outline before that. That was a good idea. But I had not written a book or really gotten started. Things were so different back then. So getting to know the world of publishing was interesting. And historically, I can tell you a lot about how things have changed. But the fact of the matter is, one doesn't need to do too deep of a dive until they get into. It's nice to know that information, what is going on in the publishing world today, but one doesn't need to know all of that to get started. Getting started for writing is key. Some authors will tell you when you go to a book conference, highly recommend that you go to a book conference as soon as possible. It's okay to go without having written your book or even an outline. It's okay to show up without a book proposal. Just start circulating among other creatives and learn some of the craft, of writing is taught at these conferences and some information about publishing. But early on, just starting to write is fantastic. And I would say, definitely, by all means, if you can do so, write and create a place in your house that you like writing or at a coffee shop, whatever. Do that and make a routine of it. If you can every day for a while, many people don't have that time. So you may have 2 or 3 jobs in today's economy. You may have a house full of kids. You may be caretaking for your parents. Well, all of those things. It might not be practical for you to write every single day at a special place in your home, but write as much as you can and write with wild abandon. Don't worry about what people will think. Don't worry about your sentence structure. Don't edit yourself. Just keep writing. And I would say stop your writing session in the middle of a sentence. So the next time you come back, you complete that sentence and keep moving forward. It may not make sense. These things may seem so awful. Sometimes I would look at my writing and think, and I still do this, I think, what on earth will anybody ever want to read any of this? What a terrible sentence. I'm an awful writer. I can't do this. Man, I feel so anxious. That's a pretty normal response. Like sometimes I feel like, oh, I can do this. I can put string sentences together and make them interesting. That's a good day. Another day I can't. But it's important to keep moving forward. I will also encourage you, if you could join a book critique group or a writer's critiquing group, by all means do. They have them online. You can put it in your search engine also. What is affordable and something that you would be interested? Or join your local writers guild or local writers group and see if they have critique groups. It is not getting your work looked at by someone else that is the most valuable thing. Although the accountability of having a critique group is fantastic. It is really, the goal is in you critiquing someone else's work, because there you will learn what bothers you, what you like, how to give constructive feedback. And trust me, if there's some writing mistake that someone else is making and it really rankles you, it kind of bothers you, you won't be making that same one. You'll make your own, but you won't be making that same one. And it feels great to have an exchange where they look at your work, you look at their work, however your group will be organized. By all means, look for a meetup critique group or a writers guild or local writing group and just do it. Just do it. It is such a great experience. Highly, highly recommend. Also, I recommend that you start going to listen to other local writers or authors that show up in your neighborhood who give readings. The more reading you do of all genres, the better your writing will be. I didn't used to believe that. It is absolutely true. When I hear writers say, I don't have time to read because I'm writing, I know they're usually a pretty lousy writer. You can't be an expert in a field that you know nothing about anyone else's work. We're all building on one another in a sense, and we need each other. We're not competitors. Authors are not competitors against one another. We support one another, ideally. So fantastic to do that. Don't worry if someone else has written a book that is on the same theme that yours has been written on, because that only bolsters the fact that there is an audience out there for this kind of book. You are not competitors. You can support one another. Join a beginning writers Facebook group as an example, or social media group. There's one called Writers Helping Writers. And it's just a place where people touch base and encourage one another or lift each other up after a disappointment. Do that. I would say start writing, write regularly, join a critique group, save your pennies and literally invest in yourself and join or go to rather a writers conference. I would pick it carefully based on what you can afford, what's close enough to you, but also represents writing that you're interested in doing. So it wouldn't make sense for you to go to a children's literature conference if you don't write kids' books, right? If you write memoirs, you don't want to go to the Romance Writers Association. So do your homework, find out where there are writers' conferences, either virtually or in certain areas that you can attend. One of the things that I did early on that was correct for me anyway, was I started going to writers' conferences. And I even gave a little extra cash that I didn't really have to an agent and or an editor at the conference and let them preview my early pages. Every time I did that, even though it was hard to hear because I wasn't a great writer at all, not at all. But every time I went, I learned something more. I got some feedback that was totally necessary to make my book a success. I also learned to accept feedback and to not get defensive or take it so personally. Trust me, I just edited a book and it dealt with some pushback of giving editorial feedback. And I will say that people, if they go too far in their writing journey without getting feedback from people who are just family and friends saying, that's great, that's great, that's great. Even our critique groups can be a little overly glowing at times. So to get unvarnished feedback and learn to accept it and figure out what is right and what isn't, what is the feedback you will accept and what will you ignore, that is very, very important. It makes you so much better and shaves years off your amateur writing experience. It really can. Because in the perfect world, you're going to publish your book one day, all kinds of people will read it, and you will get good reviews, customer reviews, the most important kind of reviews. And you will get online trolls who will say horrifying things about you and your work. That is the world we live in. And so if you can start kind of getting a tougher skin and kind of get a little bit callous toward that kind of feedback, the better off you will be. And so be in a critique group, yes. Do go to a conference eventually, yes, but the main thing is keep writing. And when you have finished your first draft, if you're not in a critique group, that may very well be a time to consider hiring a developmental editor. If this is your first book, not just a proofreader, but an editor, a real editor. Writing, you probably figured out, is not a way to get rich. Most of us don't even earn up what we've invested in our writing any longer. But get the joy of it. While I say writing will not make you rich financially, it may be one of the most enriching things you ever do. So don't hesitate to save money to invest in you and your writing. You will get exponentially better when you work with a developmental editor, and they will point you in the direction if you need a proofreader, all the things. So be ready to do some things, roll up your sleeves, and don't let anyone tell you that you can't, that your book isn't interesting enough, that it should ever be published, or that you'll never get there. As long as you are persistent, I'm telling you, you can write. You know, writers, the advantage they have, published writers, the advantage they have over people who talk about writing, which is the majority of people will talk about writing and not do it. So little follow through compared to how many people say they want to write a book. But the difference is that the person who does finish has probably put in many, many hours of taking writing classes, maybe online, a workshop here and there, critiquing other people's work, working with an editor. They don't stop. They don't just get discouraged and say, I can't do it. I'll never do it. This is too hard. They continue to show up and finish the job. And the first run through of your book, the first draft, do celebrate it. If you have finished a rough draft of your book, it is time to celebrate. It also may be time to put that book aside for a while until you've taken a breath and you can go back and look at it. And maybe you want to run it through something like Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly to see how you can improve it before you start working with that editor, and then get going. It takes usually drafts of a book before it seems like you will want it to. But by golly, you are worth the time, you are worth the effort. And I think if you believe that your story can impact others, then it is absolutely worth following through. So don't give up on you and keep doing it. Write as often as you can. If I had, until last year, I need to get back on it, but I made a promise to myself that I would always take a class a year or a writer's conference a year. And I couldn't do that when my kids were tiny because I was the sole supporter. So I couldn't afford any of that. But when I could afford it, it was a priority. And I didn't say, oh, it's too expensive, I won't do it, whatever. Hey, if you can get your nails done, or if you can go out to have dinner every month or whatever, you can shave back a little bit and start saving toward investing in your amazing writing. You've got a story to tell. I know that no one else can tell your story the way that you can. And you can do it. And whether you want to get traditionally published, that's a little harder these days, or work with a hybrid publisher, or figure out a way to become an independent publisher. Don't worry about any of that just yet. Just keep on writing. Don't pre-edit yourself. Make sure that you're in a supportive writers community. Get yourself in there. And when they have events, one thing I did that I'm so pleased that I did was I made sure to go to a lot of writers events and support them and volunteer at my local writers guild. I even facilitated a panel of authors one time in front of a huge group. This was probably a year before my book was published because I just wanted the experience and to learn from how other people manage themselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So all of these things can be fun. They take time, and they take give yourself a lot of patience and grace. I know you can do it. And thanks so much for asking. My opinion is simply my opinion. since I wrote my memoir, I have written a work of fiction, a work of nonfiction that's more prescriptive, nonfiction helping people in crisis, and then contributed to and published a beautiful anthology. I'm really excited about it and I learn something new every time. But what I'm sharing today has been my experience over the last couple of decades, but somebody else may have a totally different take. While you're at it, I would also encourage you to start listening to podcasts for writers. There are a number of them out there. You can go ahead and look in your podcast, just type in search engine for new authors or beginning writers or memoir, whatever it is that you want to learn about. Listen to some podcasts, listen to guested podcasts, and see what other people are thinking and doing in the genre that you want to be writing in.
So, what should you do? Start writing with wild abandon. Create space for your writing as regularly as possible. Maybe you find a little place in your closet. Do you have an office? Do you go to a coffee shop? That's one way to think of space, but also etching out a little bit of time. If you don't have much time like I didn't, you're caretaking, you're doing other things, working several jobs, do the best you can when you can. It might be on a public bus scrolling some notes. It might be on a lunch hour break, dictating into your phone. Who knows? Grab what space you can as regularly as possible for your writing. Find a supportive critique group online or in your area. Read books in your genre. If you're writing children's books, read children's books. If you're writing a memoir, read other people's memoirs. Don't worry that you're going to somehow accidentally steal your ideas. You are not, but you will learn more when you read more. Sign up as finances allow and time allows for a writing workshop or conference. And you could do that online or Google what is in your local area. And be willing eventually to hire a developmental editor. You will learn so much and they'll hold you accountable to keep making progress. We tend to do things once we've committed ourselves a little bit financially also. So it has a whole bunch of ways that it helps you keep moving forward with your writing. I hope this has helped. Find me at lameredith.com and have a great time starting your work.